My name is Andrea, and at the age of 37, I'm going to tell you a story that has changed all my ideas about family ties. Our family was never rich, but we managed. My mother retired early due to health problems, but my father continued to work, expecting his well-deserved rest in 2 years. I grew up in an atmosphere of care, albeit not always evenly distributed. 12 years after I was born, I had a sister, Laura, and from the very first days it became clear that she was my beloved daughter. Her parents looked at her with adoration, always ready to fulfill any wish. I got used to being independent, matured early, and got a good job after college. Shortly before that, I met Ben, and soon we decided to move in together. He was as pragmatic as I was, and maybe that's why we were so at ease with each other. While Laura was graduating from college, I was building a career and thinking about the future of our family. My parents' house was falling into disrepair. This old, time-worn two-story building held many memories, but the reality was ruthless. It was collapsing. It got really bad last winter. Cracks in the walls, a leaking roof, and a creaking floor that had caved in places. I invited contractors to assess the damage, and I still remember the look on the chief specialist's face as he walked around the rooms, shaking his head every now and then. "Ma'am, it's going to cost more to fix this house than to build a new one," he finally said, pointing to the rotten beams. "You're just throwing money away." And then I made a decision. It seemed logical and correct to me. I opened a joint savings account with my parents, intending to save money for a new house. The plan was simple: raise $200,000, add to this amount the proceeds from the sale of the old house and buy something reliable, safe, where parents could safely meet old age. I saved a significant portion of my salary every month. The balance was growing: 50,000, 100,000. I saw this as a way to family security. Ben and I lived modestly, putting off our dreams of owning our own place. I didn't regret it. Family was more important. Right? Everything changed in one evening. It was a typical Sunday family dinner. The rain drummed on the roof, filling the house with a quiet, measured noise, and the scent of my mother's stew hung in the air. We were sitting at the table talking when Laura cleared her throat and drew attention to herself. "Kevin and I are getting married," she announced, and held up her left hand to reveal a huge diamond ring. The parents burst out with joy. Mom immediately jumped up, rushing to hug Laura. Her father was smiling with pride. I was really glad too. Kevin was a nice guy, from a wealthy family, and he loved my sister. They were perfect for each other. But the next thing Laura said changed everything. "I've planned everything," she continued, pulling out her phone and showing us the Pinterest board screen. There were photos of the venue, flower arrangements, sketches of dresses. "All this will cost about $300,000. I choked on the water. "How much?" I asked, sure I'd misheard. $300,000, Laura repeated with the ease of talking about buying a new pair of shoes. There was silence in the room. My parents exchanged awkward glances, and my sister looked at me with an expression I hadn't seen on her before, a mixture of confidence, expectation, and something else. "Laura, this is crazy," I finally gasped. "Kevin suggested we do something more modest," she shrugged, dismissing him casually. "Only close ones." But I told him I could handle it on my own. I want his family to see that we are just like them. "And how exactly are you going to pay for it?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer in my gut. Laura smiled sweetly, as if her words were self-evident. "You will help me, of course. You've always helped the family." The silence that followed was deafening. I turned my head and looked at my parents, hoping they would say something to bring my sister back to reality. But Mom just stared at her plate, and Dad suddenly showed excessive interest in his coffee. "I can give you $20,000 for the wedding," I said carefully, trying to sound calm. and another $10,000 as a wedding gift. That's a lot of money. Lara's face darkened, and her lips tightened into a thin line. This is ridiculous, Andrea. You have a lot more. This is my only chance to have my dream wedding, to show Kevin's family that I'm not some poor girl they'll look down on. I turned abruptly to my parents. There was desperation in his voice. Mom, Dad, please tell her this is crazy. Tell her she doesn't have to prove anything to anyone. Mom's response was like a knife in my heart. Maybe Lara's right, dear. We often had to deny her many things when she was growing up. She deserves her own special day. You're just jealous, Lara suddenly spat out, and there was a hardness in her voice that I hadn't heard before. You're jealous that I'm getting married first. You're jealous that Kevin's family has money. You're jealous that I'm going to have the wedding you can only dream of. I froze, listening to her words. I could have a great wedding if I wanted to, I retorted, barely able to keep the tremor out of my voice. But unlike you, I understand the value of money. When Ben and I get married, we'll have a little ceremony and we'll save up for things that really matter. For example, children. For the future. God, you're so smug, Lara jumped up, her face flushed with anger. You always act like you know what's best for everyone. You're just being greedy and selfish. Those words hit me like a slap in the face. I stood up, grabbed my purse, and headed for the door. Tears stung my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. Am I greedy? I called over my shoulder. I gave away half of my salary to help my parents, while you were figuring out how to spend money that wasn't even yours. When I ran out into the cold rain, I heard my mother's voice behind me, full of pain. Andrea, wait. But I didn't turn around. I was driving home, blinded by tears and anger. I tried to convince myself that it was just a bad dream, that Lara would calm down and understand everything. I kept telling myself that she was getting too carried away, that it was just nerves, but my heart told me otherwise. 2 weeks have passed. During this time, I have not received a single call, not a single message from my sister. The parents were also silent. I tried to swallow the resentment, buried myself in my work, but the inner chill wouldn't let go. One day, during my lunch break, I sat at the table and habitually made up my monthly budget. Ben and I were planning to have dinner after work, and I wanted to make sure we had enough money set aside after the next installment to the parents' account. I logged into online banking, clicked on the joint account, and froze. The balance showed 0. For a moment, the world ceased to exist. I stared at the screen in disbelief. With trembling fingers, I clicked on the transaction history. $150,000. Withdrawal in one amount. 3 days ago. My heart started pounding in my throat. I don't remember finishing my day at work. I think I just got up and left without even explaining anything to my superiors. The road to her parents' house was blurred by tears and anxiety. I gripped the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. Fragments of thoughts flashed through my head, and none of them were comforting. When I arrived, both of my parents' cars were parked in the driveway. I didn't knock. She took out an old key that she had used as a child and entered the house. They were in the kitchen. The usual picture is of Dad with a cup of coffee, Mom putting something on the shelves. But as soon as they saw my face, their serenity collapsed. Where's the money? My voice was cold and firm. Where are they? They were silent. Mom looked away, and Dad stared into his cup again. Just like that ill-fated evening at the family table. What happened to the $150,000 in the account? I already knew the answer, but I waited anyway. I wanted to hear their version. I wanted them to explain how they could. The silence was unbearable. Tell me, I demanded. Just tell me. Mom slowly raised her head, and I saw in her eyes not only guilt, but also some kind of strange resignation. "We don't know what you're talking about, honey," Mom said softly. "Don't lie to me," I shouted, pulling out my phone. My hands were shaking when I opened the banking app. Here's the statement. Someone withdrew all the money 3 days ago. I'm calling the police now. No. Mom abruptly reached for my phone, but I pulled my hand away. Don't call the police. I gave them to Lara. She needed money for the wedding. She's getting married into a good family, and we couldn't let her have a low-key wedding. What will they think? I laughed. But it was a dry, alien laugh. What will they think? They should think that she's marrying their son because she loves him, not because she's trying to buy their approval with my money. Mom took a step toward me, her face contorted with anxiety. Everything will be fine. Laura promised that she would help us buy a new house after the wedding. Kevin has a rich family, they'll be fine. She promised to send us money every month. She'll arrange everything. I stood as if petrified, feeling something inside me crumble. Do you hear yourself? I asked, my voice trembling treacherously. You had $150,000 saved up for a new house. We only needed another $50,000. And you could move out of this ruin, out of this death trap. But you just gave it all away. To the party. For a one-day event. It's not just a party, my father said sharply. It's an investment. Investing in Lara's future. You don't understand. When will she marry Kevin? I looked around the kitchen. Cracked walls, sagging ceiling, water stains in the corners. All this could be fixed. I could fix all that. But now? Now it will remain forever, as a reminder of the choice they made. You know what? I exhaled, suddenly feeling tired. You're right. I don't understand. And, to be honest, I don't want to understand anymore. You have made your choice. Now live with it. I don't remember how I got home. I didn't sleep much that night. Ben held me while I cried, until all the bitter disappointment flowed out in tears, until I was left empty. He was the one who helped me make the decision. Make a list of what needs to be done. The first thing in the morning, I closed the joint account and opened a new one in my name only. Everything I could do to protect myself, my life, and my future. And then I picked up the phone and dialed Lara's number. She only answered the fourth ring. Her voice was light, even cheerful. Oh, hello, Andrea. I was just looking at the place for the ceremony. You should have seen it. It's just an amazing place. I gritted my teeth, forcing myself not to snap. Stop it. Stop talking nonsense, Lara. I know. I know what you did. I know about money. There was a pause. It's long and intense. When she spoke, there was no longer any mirth in her voice. If Mom and Dad decided to give me this money, then it's their decision. You are not responsible for them. Give me the money back, I said through gritted teeth. Give them back now. Or, I swear, Lara. What? Her voice turned icy. What are you going to do? Will you call the police? Go on. Mom gave me this money legally. This is their decision, they're right. You should be happy for me. This is the wedding of my dreams. The wedding of your dreams? I asked, not believing what I was hearing. What about Mom and Dad's dream? Their dream of a safe house. Have you even thought about it? There was a dead silence on the other end of the line. She didn't answer right away, and I knew I'd hit the nail on the head. Oh, please, Lara finally grinned. They'll be fine. Once I marry Kevin, I can buy them anything. His family, They have connections. We'll probably buy them a house for less than market value. So don't worry. They'll have everything. I laughed bitterly. Do you really believe that? That you'll marry for money, and all your problems will disappear? Do you think it's that simple? Tell me, Laura, what did you tell Kevin about money? Does he know where they're from? Silence again. Deep, heavy. It took a long time before Laura finally spoke. He doesn't know. Her voice was almost inaudible. Did you tell him you had your own money? I pressed her, not letting her get away from the answer. Or does he think that you just decided to waste other people's money? Did you tell him that you stole them from our parents' housing stock? She exploded. I took the money they gave me. Everything is legal. Legally? I grinned angrily. Is it legal because you persuaded old people who just wanted you to be happy? Made them believe that it was for the sake of their future? She stopped talking. I felt like there was a wall between us. Cold, sharp. You know what? Laura said, her voice trembling. Don't come to the wedding. You're not needed there. You'll only ruin everything with your envy. With this superiority. You always thought you were better than me, didn't you? Lara's last words were laced with contempt. I sat there, stunned by her accusations, and dozens of memories popped up in my head. How I helped her in college, paid for her textbooks when she couldn't afford to buy them. How she paid the rent when she was unemployed. There were countless little things I supported her in, protected her, covered up for her parents and even for Ben. I remembered justifying her to him when he grumbled that Lara was spoiled, assuring her that she was just young enough to outgrow it. I believed in it. Or maybe she wanted to believe. Do you know what the difference is between us, Lara? I said softly. I don't need a $300,000 wedding to prove my worth to someone. When I get married, I'll be able to look my husband in the eye, knowing that I didn't lie to him about the money. A second of silence. Then she muttered something. I have an appointment with a florist. Don't call me anymore. The line broke. I sat there for a long time, staring at the black screen of my phone, feeling my strength drain away. My head was filled with memories of her childhood moods, how I covered up her mistakes. I remembered Ben warning me that Lara was used to getting everything she wanted. I defended her then, naively believing that she just hadn't had time to grow up. Ben found me like this when he came home. He took off his coat, put down his keys, and looked at me. Have you talked to her? What is it? He asked softly. I nodded. She spent it, I managed. For deposits, for bookings that are non-refundable. And the parents. I laughed, but there was more pain than humor in that laugh. They believe that Lara will take care of them after the wedding. They think she's going to buy them a house with her rich husband's money. Ben slowly sat down next to her. His hand came to rest on mine, and in that touch was all his support. What are you going to do? I was silent. I looked at the walls, which were once a symbol of home, but now they have become only a reminder of betrayal. Nothing, I finally said, and I was surprised at my own calm determination. There's nothing to do. They made their choice. All three of them. Now let them live with him. And I really didn't do anything else. In the months that followed, I threw myself into my work, into planning my future with Ben. We found a modest but cozy house and started saving money for a down payment. A small, simple dream. But she was ours. And she didn't depend on false hopes and deals behind her back. The news about Lara's wedding preparations reached me through Aunt Sarah. Unlike me, she continued to communicate with her mother and Lara. One day we met for coffee, and her words sounded like a blow. You should have seen it, Andrea, Sarah said, shaking her head. They've completely lost their heads. The dress alone costs $30,000. And there are pigeons at the ceremony, a 5-tiered cake covered with real gold. She sighed. That's crazy. I listened, feeling something shrink inside, but not from surprise. No, the surprise has passed. All that remained was a dull ache. And then, all of a sudden, Kevin came to work for me. His appearance was like a bolt from the blue. An expensive suit, a tense face, and a look of concern. Can we talk? What is it? He asked, hovering awkwardly at my desk. I motioned for him to sit down, restraining my inner trembling. I just found out about the money, he said, and looked at me as if he was looking for salvation from me. About where they really come from. My heart skipped a beat. What do you know? I asked cautiously. He sighed. Your parents' accountant. He helped them review their finances before the wedding. He noticed large deposits in Lara's account and asked where the money came from. She broke down and told me everything. I leaned back in my chair, waiting for what would happen next. I didn't know, Kevin continued. She said that she had been saving for years, that she had her own fund, her own dream. I offered to make the holiday simpler, more modest, but she refused. She said she could handle it. He ran a hand over his face, as if wiping away fatigue. If I had known that this was the money you were collecting for your parents' house. When he left my office, I sat for a long time, trying to figure out how to relate to what I had heard. Part of me wanted to warn him. To tell you how Lara has been used to getting everything she wants since childhood. How her parents pampered her, how she manipulated them. But the other part understood that he had to make his own decisions. This is no longer my responsibility. The wedding day has arrived. A beautiful sunny Saturday. I didn't go. I've seen the photos on social media. Snow-white pigeons, a carriage, a fountain with champagne, fireworks. Everything Lara dreamed of. And all for the money that was supposed to give our parents a house. A safe place to live. That night, I lay awake thinking about my parents. She imagined them sitting at that lavish wedding, surrounded by glitter, gold, and noisy toasts, smiling as if the old, crumbling house they had to return to did not exist. Houses where the cracks on the walls were getting wider, where the floor creaked as if it was ready to collapse. The house they traded for Lara's dream and lost. It's been 6 months. I thought I had closed this page of my life, but a phone call brought me back to where it all started. The parents' number appeared on the screen. I stared at him, not daring to answer. My chest felt heavy, my head felt empty. But some part of me, still connected to them, made me pick up the phone. Andrea, Mom's voice was quiet and tired. Everything is bad. I was silent, waiting. The house, it's collapsing, her voice cracked. Last week, a pipe burst in the bathroom on the top floor. We can't afford to fix it. Your father had to shut off the water to the entire floor. I was silent. I listened. I waited. We tried to call Lara, Mom continued, her voice getting weaker and weaker. She promised that she would help us after the wedding, but now she says that she and Kevin have problems with cash flow. Something about his family's business, about a bad neighborhood. What do you want from me, Mom? I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral, but my stomach was clenching. A short sigh followed. We made a mistake, she whispered. We know that. Gypsum. He fell from the ceiling and hit your father on the head. He received 3 stitches. The doctor said that we were lucky that it didn't get worse. I closed my eyes, remembering how 2 years ago the contractor warned us that the house was already on the verge. We were standing in these very rooms at the time, and he was saying that every season brings disaster closer. If only they had listened then. Have you tried talking to Lara again? I asked. Mom's bitter laugh surprised me. She and Kevin don't talk much. We returned from our honeymoon, already quarreling over money. Laura had exhausted all their credit cards in the Maldives. His parents intervened, and, well, it's not good. I suddenly felt sorry for her. Not Laura, no. I felt sorry for my mother, sorry for my father, who sacrificed their future for the sake of a fairy tale, which was now falling apart like the house they lived in. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, and the words were sincere. Not because I felt sorry for Laura. It's because Mom and Dad sacrificed everything for her. For the sake of her illusion. Could you? My mother's voice broke. Maybe you can help us. At least because of the pipe. We have nowhere to go at all. It's hard for your father to get up and down the stairs to use the bathroom on the first floor. He suffers at night. I was silent, thinking about the house that Ben and I had saved up for. About the modest wedding that was planned. About every dollar we saved, dreaming of a future where everything is simple but stable. I can't, Mom, I finally said, feeling the words grow heavy. I can't help you anymore. You need to talk to Laura. After I hung up, the air in the room seemed thicker. He was pushing. Strangled. I called Aunt Sarah almost immediately. She always knew more than she was saying. Did you hear that? I asked. Her voice was soft. I know. Your mom didn't tell you everything. I held my breath. Laura and Kevin live in a luxury apartment. His parents bought it as a wedding present. But their marriage is already bursting at the seams. Kevin found out that Laura had taken out personal loans to pay for additional wedding expenses. And that's on top of the money she took from your parents. And your father, Sarah paused. He's still working, Andrea. Despite his age. And Mom is looking for a job. I work part-time to get by. I was silent. They've closed the top floor, Sarah continued. Because of the water, because of the mold. The house is becoming dangerous. The structure is damaged. They either have to repair it or move out. But they can't afford either. Your father is too proud to ask for help. But, Andrea, they're in trouble. I remembered standing in this house 2 years ago, listening to contractors who were planning how to help my parents move. If only they had waited, trusted me, and not Lara's empty promises. In the evening, I sat in my home office, staring at old photos of my home. They still made him look whole, comfortable, and full of life. Ben came up to me quietly, and stood next to me. You're thinking about helping them, aren't you? He asked. No, I said firmly. I can't. Even if I wanted to. We are collecting savings for our own house. I won't set myself on fire to keep them warm. Especially after everything they've done. Ben nodded, his gaze thoughtful but calm. But it kills to see them suffer, he said. I turned to him, and there were tears in my eyes that I hadn't allowed myself to shed for too long. Of course it's killing me, I breathed. These are my parents. I love them. But they made their choice. They chose Lara's one-day fantasy instead of their future. They chose to believe her empty promises instead of my real help. And now they're living with that choice. I didn't sleep well last night. In the dream, she returned to her childhood home. I was a child, sitting in my room, listening to the rain drumming on the glass. I looked up and saw cracks creeping across the ceiling, one after the other. The water dripped down, slowly, inexorably. First one drop, then another. I put buckets, bowls, cups, trying to catch each one, but no matter how hard I tried, the water still found a way to seep through. 2 years have passed. Life went on as usual, and I learned to live with this wound. Until Aunt Sarah called. I picked up the phone, expecting a normal conversation, but her voice was strained. "Laura and Kevin are getting divorced," she said without any prelude. I froze. "She's moving back in with her parents." The words echoed in me. The last straw was what Kevin discovered. Laura was hiding her mail. Sarah's voice was heavy. Bills for overdue payments, notifications of debts. She secretly used their shared credit cards for months, even after he cut her off from them. His parents intervened. And the prenuptial agreement came into force. She won't get anything. I swallowed hard, suppressing the bitterness. She has about $50,000 in personal debt, Sarah continued. She took this money to cover the wedding expenses. And plus the card debts she had accumulated while trying to keep up appearances. Kevin's family completely washes their hands of her. I closed my eyes, and images from the past surfaced in front of me: a $300,000 wedding, pigeons, a golden leaf cake, luxury, show off. The money that was supposed to be the foundation of a new life for my parents turned into ashes. A wedding, a marriage, a dream, it all collapsed, leaving behind only debts and ruins. If only they had believed me then, I whispered. If you had waited. If they had trusted me. Now they were paying the price for that faith. My father was still working, despite his age, and my mother took on odd jobs. And now they had to take back a daughter who had brought them nothing but destruction. That evening, I drove past their house. She didn't stop, she didn't get out. I just stared at that gray silhouette, familiar and alien at the same time. Lara's car was already parked at the entrance. A luxurious model, shiny and expensive, once a symbol of her success. A symbol she could no longer afford. Through the windows, I could see the light on the ground floor, the shadows on the walls. I imagined Lara entering this house, not as a triumphant, but as a fugitive. But that's how fairy tales that are based on lies end. The next day, I met Lara by chance at the grocery store where my mother worked. I walked past the shelves and almost didn't recognize her. Designer clothes have disappeared, the shine has disappeared. She was wearing plain jeans, an old sweater, and peeling nail polish. Lara looked older and tired. She saw me, her eyes widened, but she abruptly turned away, hiding behind the shelves. I didn't follow her. Today I'm standing in front of a mirror. The white dress is simple, without frills, without jewelry. My wedding. Not at all like the one Lara dreamed of. Ben and I are going to the courthouse. There will only be Aunt Sarah and a few of his relatives. After the ceremony, we will have dinner in a small cozy restaurant, where we often visited. No gold, no show-off. Only what matters. Are you sure you don't want to invite them? Ben asked yesterday. He meant my parents. Lara. I shook my head. They made their choice 3 years ago, I replied. Now I'm making my own. The latest news from Aunt Sarah was heavy. The house was officially declared uninhabitable. The authorities issued an order, either urgent repairs or eviction. But there was no money for repairs. My parents had to move into a small 2-room apartment with Lara, using the few savings they had left. In the end, they lost the house. His residence permit was revoked and he was declared an emergency. It's probably still standing there, empty, dilapidated, with broken windows and a collapsed roof, a monument to the mistakes they made. Mom still works at the grocery store, putting up price tags and sorting vegetables, despite her age. Dad, no matter how much he resisted, was forced to retire. His health no longer allowed him to carry heavy boxes and stand on his feet all day. Lara works as a waitress, tired, exhausted, trying to pay off the huge debts she has accumulated. Your mother is asking about you, and Sarah recently told me. She keeps your wedding announcement on her bedside table. I sent them this ad through her, not directly. It wasn't an invitation, just a notification that I was getting married. A simple piece of paper with facts. Mom tried to call after she got it, but I switched the call to voicemail. Some bridges, once burned, cannot be rebuilt. Now they understand. They know they've made a terrible mistake, Sarah said. Your father says that this is the biggest regret of his life. That he chose one daughter's fantasy over the other's reality. I closed my eyes. Yes, they understood now. But understanding doesn't change anything. It doesn't return the $150,000 they gave away. Does not restore their abandoned house. It doesn't erase the fact that they betrayed my trust in the most painful way. Lara still lives with them. He works in 2 shifts, trying to cover his wedding debt with at least minimal payments. Designer clothes, an expensive car, a luxurious apartment, all this is gone. Now she posts on social media about how she learned important life lessons, about true values and the true meaning of family. I turned down her voice. Her words sounded empty after everything that had happened. Yesterday, a package arrived from my parents. A wedding gift. I almost sent it back unopened. But curiosity got the better of him. Inside was my mother's old pearl necklace, the only valuable thing she had left. And a note. We should have trusted you. We had to see what you really are, responsible, caring. The one who tried to give us a real future, not a one-day dream. We're so sorry. We love you. I stared at the necklace, feeling strangely empty. I slowly put it back in the box. Maybe someday I'll wear it. But not today. Today, I'm wearing a simple silver pendant that Ben gave me for our first anniversary. It's inexpensive, it's not flashy. But he's real. Like our love. How are our plans? Like our future. Ben and I will go home after the ceremony. To the house that we finally saved up enough money for. Nothing special, a modest 2-bedroom apartment in a quiet area. But she's ours. Built on honest work and patience, not on false promises. Ready? Ben asks, peering into the room. I take one last look in the mirror. My dress is simple. My makeup is minimal. My flowers are from a small local flower shop, bought this morning. Nothing like Lara's extravagance. But I'm getting married to the man I love. Surrounded by people I trust. I'm ready, I say. As we drive to court, I think about the past. About the lessons I've learned from all this. About how some people will suck you dry if you let them. About how parents can love their children too much, but not in the right way. About how one wrong decision can destroy decades of trust and hard work. But I also learned something about myself. About his power. About how to set boundaries. How to choose reality over fantasy. How to build a life on solid ground, not on quicksand. Write a comment on what you think about this story and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like it. See you soon.